Today, we're going to be talking about raising prices when you're a B2B SaaS or AI company. We're going to talk the pros and cons, different strategies. What do you do for existing customers? Let's dive into it. Hey guys, Bill Mositis here. Thank you so much for joining SaaS CMO Pro. My mission is to educate marketers, VCs, founders on modern SaaS and AI marketing. So my background, I was previously CMO CRO at Slack. Before that, I was CMO at Zendesk. And before that, SVP of marketing at Salesforce. Before that, I actually done 15 years on the B2C side, working with large media companies, different startups. And so I've done a lot of different pricing and packaging in my days. I think pricing and packaging is a huge lever that you have for your company's growth and all the different facets that go into that, freemium thresholds, use of credits. By the way, I've done separate videos on each one of those. If you're curious, I'll include links in the description below. But today's topic is just on raising prices. So this is kind of a natural evolution, right? A lot of times when you start off, you may be just starting with the SMB products, SMB segment. And when you're doing that, a lot of times you'll have like more of an entry level price. And then as you go on, you add more functionality, you add a product that is more suited to mid-market or maybe enterprise. And if you have a single plan, that's tough, right? Because you have a very low price, you need to think about how you're going to raise it. Or maybe you start to introduce multiple plans, right? And those are in different price points. But even within there, over time, you may be providing a lot more value. Maybe you want to charge more for that. And historically, when I was with Slack, Zendesk, Salesforce, those were never the cheapest plans. They're never, at least compared to competitors. I always thought we were selling more of a premium product because we delivered much more value. And so you run into these situations like, okay, should we raise our prices? Like, how do we do that? How do we test it? So let's start with there, right? I do think this is a great area. A lot of things in marketing, and I would, consider pricing and packaging, an area that marketing can help out with. You can test. Right? When I was at IGN Entertainment, IGN.com, for those that like, gaming and media, we had multiple plans and we did a lot of price testing there, right? We would test higher prices, lower prices, would have went by a couple dollars, this and that. When I was at Zendesk, we did an extensive amount of price testing. I remember we were launching an enterprise plan and we actually had a pretty low price. And I remember we tested out a higher price. It's like another, $20, $30 up per user. And what was really interesting on that one was demand actually increased once we did the higher price. And, we had measured demand elasticity and all these different tests, but what we ended up finding was, we had priced it so cheaply that I think a lot of people thought that, oh, well, this isn't like a realistic solution for our enterprise because it's so cheap. Like it can't be, right? And you never know these things, right? Until you test them, until you start to get some data that comes in. So I definitely recommend that. Test it. Run a longer test if possible too, right? Look at the different, intent signals at multiple levels within the funnel. So, hey, how many people, how much more visits did we have? How much more leads did we have? How much more pipeline did we have? How much more closed business did we have, right? To do that, you have to run like a longer test. It's got to be like a 6-month test. I know a lot of cases we just want to like pull the trigger on these things and move forward. Make sure you have your control groups, right? Make sure you have a group that sees the existing price. If you're raising prices, sometimes people will find out, right? And they ask if they do, no problem. Hey, just here's the lower price. But you can test these things out, right? And it's something where you can go through and understand what is the demand elasticity curve? Like how much more could we get from that? If we raise the price, how much lower does demand get? You can make an informed data-driven decision, which I think is super helpful. So the next topic that comes up a lot is, okay, what do we do for the existing users, right? Are we just going to raise prices? Let's say you've decided, hey, we want to raise prices on a plan or a product and we want to move forward with this. Does everybody get the new price? Do only certain groups get it? Are we going to grandfather certain instances of it? That's an important one, right? Are we going to give them some time to adjust before they get the new prices? Are we going to let them know? How far in advance are we going to let them know? On the comm side, you have a lot of options, a lot of decisions that you're going to have to make. So I'll tell you, part of the reason I do this is to share scar tissue with you guys of things that didn't work. So I remember when I joined Zendesk and they were right in the middle of a price increase. And it was on our lowest plan, right? And we had gone up, I think $1, a couple dollars, really not that much. It was like, I forget the exact amounts. It was like going from $5 to $6 or something. And that segment primarily, the one that we raised it for, primarily served SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses. And what you'll find out is SMBs are by far the most price sensitive. So generally, the more you move up in the enterprise, the less the specific price increases or deltas significantly move that demand elasticity. Whereas when you're selling to SMBs, a small change can be a big change, right? And we had said, hey, we're just going to change it. We're going to change it, all the users, anyone that's on this plan. And oh my, did the pitchforks come out? We just got a lot of hate mail that came in, a lot of negative, reviews, and just people, they didn't like it, right? Like no one likes when, you get your prices raised. But, I think it especially it hurts people that were really early adopters of your product that had stood by you in the long run. I tended to look at that. I thought about it. And I think that, my advice, if you guys want to avoid some of that scar tissue, is really think about grandfathering, right? So think about the customers that have been with you the longest. They are some of your biggest fans. They are your evangelists. They are the ones that are spreading the word, right? And again, if you're watching this entire PLG series, I recommend binge watch. I've got an entire playlist, right? You can just start at the beginning and go down. You'll get to the freemium episode. And in freemium, what I talk about is like free users or even people on your lowest price plans. You're never obviously going to make a lot of money on those, right? But those are incredibly valuable because they are your legions of free and very small paid price marketers. They're out there constantly talking about you and spreading the word, right? It's like when I was there, I think we had like 5 million people on the free plan. But that was like, we had 5 million basically independent contractors who were out there talking about Slack and recommending Slack and building over our overall awareness and our sentiment. And so when you raise prices on that group, again, if we're talking about the starter plan, right? You're kind of pissing them off, and you're pissing off this group that was spreading all this goodwill for you, right? So what I really recommend is for those early groups, really consider grandfathering. Basically saying, hey, you know what? We raised the price $2, whatever it is, you get to keep the existing price, right? Now, some people will do that and say like, hey, your existing users, existing customers, you get this lower price for a year and then you have to go up. And, that's a little bit better. I think it's just nice to say like, hey, you're part of our existing customers, hey, you just get the lower price. And part of the thing too is like, look, if you're selling an AI product, if you're selling a B2B SaaS product, if you're fast growing, that initial customer base you have is going to be such a small percentage of what your customers are going to be 5 years, 10 years down the road, right? If you're following this traditional path of a triple, double, right? They talk about ARR and how fast you're growing. That initial cohort is very small relative to it, right? Like, don't piss on them. Don't, really, just make that cohort unhappy, right? I just think like it's one of those long-term versus short-term decisions. Yes, from a short-term revenue maximization standpoint, it's like, raise the prices to everyone immediately. We're going to get this revenue. Oh, by the way, it looks great, right? But what ends up happening is your net promoter score goes down. People are less willing to recommend you. Now you have to rely on more expensive ways to grow. You have to do more outbound, you have marketing campaigns, and, it kind of hurts you in the long run. So anyways, I'd love to hear from you guys. Have you done price increases? Have you grandfathered existing groups? Have you not? What do you think's worked or not? Put them in the comments below. I love reading through them. I think it's super fun and I learn stuff every time. And if you're enjoying these videos, give it a like, give it a subscribe, give it a follow. That super helps the channel. And thank you again for joining SaaS CMO Pro.